What's going on, y'all? Thank you for joining this message. My name is Pastor Jay LaPlanche. I'm a part of the media staff here at MotivationChurch, and we are extremely excited that you decided to join this message. Listen, if this is your first time watching, please like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the post notifications, because I promise y'all, PJ preached an amazing message. We just started our new series. As you can see, it's called Louder. Listen, I don't want to speak too much on it. I want you guys to tune in. Check this out.
Matthew chapter 13. All right, let's do it. It says, the same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. A large crowd gathered around him, so he got into the boat and sat down. All the people stayed on the shore. Then Jesus used these stories to teach them many things. So Jesus was teaching parables. He told them this story or this parable. Jesus said, a farmer went out to sow seed. While he was scattering the seed, some of it fell by the road. The birds came and ate all the seed. Other seed fell on rocky ground where there was not enough dirt. It grew very fast there because the soil was not deep. But when the sun rose, it burnt the plants. The plants died because they did not have deep roots. Some other seed fell among thorny weeds. The weeds grew and stopped the good plants from growing. But some of the seed fell on good ground. Somebody shout, good ground. There it grew and made grain. Now, check this part out. This is the good part. You're going to want this. Some plants made 100 times more grain, some 60 times more, and some 30 times more. Watch what Jesus says. You people who hear me, listen. Some plants made 100, some 60, some 30. Jesus said, you who hear me, listen. For the next few moments, I want to preach from the subject, it's in the house. Go ahead and tell somebody, it's in the house. It's in the house. You could be seated. It's in the house. So, I was at the gym, and on the basketball court, shameless plug, we whooped Rob's team this week. And Asia, you deserve it because you told me we were going to lose. Just want to put that out there. But we were at the gym, and me and one of my guys were on the basketball court kind of chilling before the game started, and we're having a conversation, right? Just kicking it. Me and one of my dudes were close. And while we're talking, another guy came over, and he dapped us up. What's up? We dap him up, and then he begins to kind of stand there while we're talking. Now, it's that awkward moment, and he didn't really pay attention to the social cue that we're kind of having a private conversation. So you kind of give him the look like, all right, man, good to see you. And he didn't quite get it. And so I said, hey, can you just give us a second? We're having a conversation. He was like, oh, my bad. He got a little bit sarcastic. And he was like, my bad. I didn't mean to intervene in y'all's personal conversation. I'm going to go stand way over here. And he goes to the other side of the gym. And he looks at me like, is this far enough? And I was like, no, go outside. But anyway, like, you want to be smart? I could be smart too. And so, because he didn't quite catch the social cue, and I had to kind of invite him out of our space, it wasn't that we were talking about anything inappropriate, anything that was get me in trouble, anything that if it was out there, it'd be a problem. The bottom line is, it was just none of his business. It just had nothing to do with him. And because of the relationship that I had with the person that I was talking to, I had to be careful because of the intimacy and the level of relationship that we have. That kind of relationship, conversations can turn any moment into something deeper. And so because of where we were, what we were talking about and the level of relationship we were in, I just wanted to invite him out. This is what I'm trying to say to you. There are some conversations that's not for everybody to be a part of. There are some things and there are some thoughts that I'm not willing to share with everybody. So the level of my talking is a reflection of the level of my trusting. Let me say it again because some of y'all slow but worth waiting for. I said the level of my talking is connected or a reflection to the level of my trusting. It's the less that I trust you, the less I'll talk around you. I have to be careful, and this is why I'm sharing this with you, because there are many of you in this room today that I'm getting ready to just kind of, I want you to expose yourself to yourself. I want you to see this because the problem that many of us deal with, we keep having unnecessary conversations with people who can't appreciate our level of thought. Here's what I'm saying. That this year has to be a year, even though we're going to be louder this year, it also has to be a year that we're intentional. So the problem is that many of us are frustrated because we keep pouring into places and people that are not in position or don't have the capacity to receive what we're pouring. And I'm leery. I'm very leery of this. I promise it's going to get good in a second. I'm very leery of people who always want to know something, but rarely do something. There are people that are always nosy that want to always be up in the business, all up in the Kool-Aid, old school, but don't know the flavor. Always want to know something, but will never do anything with the information that they know. And I'm leery of people because these type of people, they get constipated from being full of information, but they never do anything to be fruitful with the information that they have. And here's the thing, one of the biggest prayers that you can pray this year, I'm getting ready to help you. One of the biggest prayers that you can ever ask God for this year is for the ability to know when to speak up and when to shut up. Let me say it again. One of the best things you can do for yourself this year is pray that God gives you the discernment that you need to know when to speak up and know when to shut up. Because it's in the tension between these two important actions that our maturity is revealed. Sometimes you got to know when to be quiet. Then there are times where you have to know when to speak. The problem is many of us are not mature enough to discern the moment that we're in. And so you can blow a God moment because you didn't say what you should have said or you said what you shouldn't have. Just bump somebody and say, watch your mouth this year. Go ahead and tell them. You told the wrong neighbor. Come on, find somebody and tell them, watch your mouth this year. And it's with this understanding that we find Jesus preaching and teaching to a crowd. Jesus had a very particular way of teaching people because Jesus was cool with it. He had swag. He didn't use a bunch of big words. He didn't try to show off his vocabulary using these words. And here's the interesting thing. Imagine if Jesus tried to do that, like the word using words. See, y'all ain't reading your Bible. The Bible says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, the Word was with God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Jesus is the Word. But if Jesus is the Word, imagine how amazing Jesus is at using words. Jesus is the creator of words. He knows every word. His vocabulary was expansive. There was nothing he didn't know. But at the same time, he used simple words to have a conversation, to teach people. And the thing about it is he taught through what was called parables. Everybody say parables. It's from a Greek word called parabole, which means it's an analogy of common stories revealing spiritual truths. And this text that we see is Jesus. He's in a public classroom, and it gets ready to turn from a public classroom to a private conversation with his disciples. And it's through this private conversation that Jesus reveals the depth of his public lesson. I promise it's going to get good. So what Jesus was doing, although he was speaking to a crowd like this, he understood that everybody was not going to understand. So privately, he starts to have a personal conversation with some people that he was in close proximity to, that he had intimate relationship with, and they started to challenge him, and they asked him some questions. They started asking him, why is it that you preach in parables? Why is it that you teach like this? And Jesus simply put it, because everything is not for everybody. And I need some of you to mature this year to realize that everything is not for everybody. Let me say it this way. My grandmother used to tell me this when I was a kid. Everything in your mind should not come out of your mouth. Oh, yeah. I knew it was going to get quiet, Brian. I knew it. Everything in your mind should not come out of your mouth. There are some things and some moments that you have to learn how to keep it to yourself. And so one of the things that God consistently shows us through the examples in the scriptures is this, that God never force feeds us truth. He never gives us what we don't desire from him. He's never gonna make you want him, and he's never gonna make you love him. He's not even going to make you chase him. But God will challenge you at times to put situations around you or put you in situations until you come into the realization not only that you want him, but you need him. Oh, God, anybody been there? Where you rejected God long enough until he put you in an experience where you say, you know what? I can't resist him anymore. I done tried every other option, and I found Jesus was the best one. Okay, I only got about 7.5 Christians in here that know what I'm talking about. But the Bible says this in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 2 and 3. It says, like newborn babies, you must crave the pure spiritual milk so that you will grow into a full experience of salvation. He says, cry out for this nourishment so that nourishment now so that you have had a taste of the Lord's kindness. In the King James Version, it says it like this, like newborn babies desire the word of God. Understand that healthy children are hungry. If you have a child and your child doesn't eat, what are you going to do? After you beat your child, if you're black, you're raising the, you're going to eat this, get over here. I can't eat. Here's the thing. But you would take your child to the doctor because you know that naturally a child should be hungry. And it's the same way spiritually. If you're saying that you are a child of God, then naturally you should be hungry for him. Something's wrong if you're a child of God, but you're never hungry for him. Whoa, I just need you to talk to me because you always have my back. I'm telling you, what I want you to understand is he's drawing something for us to understand that if we're going to be his children, then we should constantly be hungry for him. The problem is there are many of us that wear our crosses and have our tattoos and our favorite scripture on us and love to show it off in the summer, but we're not hungry. We are satisfied with Sunday. Oh, I know y'all ain't coming back next week, so I might as well go ahead and just... And watch this. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about some other people because while they're sleeping, you're here. While they're at brunch, you're here. While they're watching some game, you're here. While they're doing all this, I got to prep. I had a long week. You're here. And you being here suggests, at least leads us to believe a little bit that you're hungry for something. Anybody in here just not satisfied for Sunday, but I'm hungry for God? Coming to church is not enough. There has to be something in me that desires something from him since I'm here. What he's trying to get us to see is that the reason that some succeed and grow and others don't is because how they respond to their craving. And here's the issue. God will remain concealed to those who don't really want to know him. And that's the challenge. I'm learning that the more I'm learning about God, the more I'm desiring God. The problem is when I think I know enough, the information I have gets boring. Uh-oh. Okay. The Bible will get boring if you think you know him. Marriage will get boring when you think you know your spouse. If you've been married, I've been married 23 years now, but my wife has changed and I have changed and we keep changing. So we keep learning each other. But if I keep responding to who she was 22 years ago, if she keeps responding to who I was 10 years ago, then our marriage will never go to another level because we'll be stuck on where we were and what we've known. And so now every birthday, every date night, every Valentine's Day will look the same. But when you're getting, you know, when a relationship is new and fresh and you're getting to know them, and this is old school. We don't do this no more. But some of y'all remember old school when you had that long cord? I'm talking about before there were the cordless phones. When you had the long one and you go all the way down the hall to your room and you stretch that thing. That thing just tension. And then one more step, that thing is coming out the wall. And you lay in the bed. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. And you just want to hear them breathe. Oh, these new millennials. They don't know nothing about this stuff. Generation don't got no love songs. Y'all got no ballads. Everything's trap and mumble. He said he loves me. How you get married to him? I'm sorry. How did we get here? Oh yeah. So here's the thing. Come on. What kind of church is this? Y'all can't be laughing this much. This is church, reading the Bible. But when love is new and fresh and you're getting to know somebody, it causes you to do things you wouldn't normally do. And you start being interested in what they're interested in. And you start searching and you start, watch this, you don't just look for their interests, but you pique their interest. And one of the things about relationships is when you start to get to know them, you start to try to find things they like so you can do the things they like. Here's the problem. When we get so common and comfortable with God, we think that God just likes church. Church ain't for God. Church is for you. Uh-oh. Yeah. Church, God doesn't need church. He's in church every day. The angels are like, holy, holy, holy. God's in heaven like, he's in church every day. Church ain't for God. Church is for us. But when we think we know him, we'll get comfortable and common to the point where we just do our normal routine and we do the religious thing and we do the thing, you know, and it's like, oh, if I have time, I'll squeeze God in. I'll squeeze this in instead of making him a priority. But God wants us to grow, but we have to want to grow also. But here it is, and I'm getting into the message. You determine the type of ground your heart is. You. Philippians 2, 12 and 13, and New King James says, therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence. Watch what he says. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you both to will and to do for his good pleasure. Everybody say work out. Now, some of y'all got nervous because it's January. When you heard work out, you was like, the gym, and you quit already. I'm not talking about that. But everybody say work out. When he says work out your own soul salvation, he's not saying work for your salvation. Let me make sure that's clear. He's not saying work for your salvation. The work is already done. Jesus died on the cross and got up. So the work is done. But what he is saying, he's saying you have to work out, mean carry the goal until completion. It's when human responsibility meets divine sovereignty. Let me say it again. Working out our soul salvation is when human responsibility meets divine sovereignty. It means that I do my part because God did his part. And so he's in this place where he's talking to a group of people, and here it is. He's dealing with them, and he's speaking to a crowd about the word of God, which is a seed. And he said there's a farmer who's the preacher. And he says the preacher goes out, or the farmer goes out, and he puts out seed everywhere. Boom, seed. You get a seed. You get a seed. You get a seed. Bishop Oprah. And now everybody has a seed. But he said when everybody receives the seed, everybody doesn't receive the seed the same way. Everybody's in the same place, but everybody's not going to get it the same. Everybody's not going to respond the same. Everybody's not going to be fruitful the same. Everybody's not going to have the same production because everybody's ground is different. And he says the ground is your heart. So he says, when I throw the seed out, when I throw the word out, it's going to land on your heart. But determining or depending on what type of heart you have will determine how you receive it. So can I talk to you about you real quick? Not you, but your neighbor. This is for your neighbor, not you. I'm not preaching about you. I'm preaching about your neighbor. But I've learned something because we say things like this all the time. I know I'm not perfect, but the Lord knows. Oh, come on. The Lord knows my heart. And if I can help you, all of our hearts are full of crap. It's in the house. Just look at the screen. I'm going to show you that our hearts, Sean, are crap. It's a biblical fact that our hearts are crap. Y'all like, I did not come to church for this. But let me show you in the Bible, because I have to preach the Bible. If I preach Jason, we could fail. But if I preach the Bible, we won't fail. But tell somebody your heart is crap. Go ahead and tell them. It's crap. Let me prove it. Verse 4. Let's have some fun. Verse 4, Jesus says, while he was scattering the seed, some of it fell by the road. Pay attention to the Bible. The birds came and ate all that seed. Now, Jesus starts the part we read. He explains all of this to the people. But the part we didn't read was later when the disciples had a private conversation. Now he explains it. So watch what he says. In verse 4, he says, while he was scattering the seed, some of it fell by the road. Everybody shout the road. And the birds came and ate all the seed. Verse 19 says, what about the seed that fell by the path? That is like the people who hear the teaching about God's kingdom, but do not understand it. The evil one comes and takes away what was planted in their hearts. So the first heart that we have to write down, that's the roadside, is the heart of cement. Oh yeah, now y'all catching up. I see the lights coming on. The heart of cement. This is the roadside. The heart of cement. This is the person who hears or who listens but fails to hear. It's the person who doesn't take notes. It's the person that does not watch motivation replays. It's the person that does not attend Bible study. It's the person that misses She Motivates Ladies Nights. It's the person that misses momentum. All this is shameless plug. It's the person that skips small groups. It's the person that does not do anything that will help them to be discipled, to be accountable, or to grow. This is the person that they show up on Sundays when it's convenient for their schedule. This is the person that Jesus says Satan finds you. And when he finds you, he blinds you and grinds you. I was a rapper in my former life. Please forgive me. It's the Samson effect. When Satan caught Samson, the first thing he does when he finds him, he gets him, he cuts his hair, he loses his strength. Now he's out of position with God. And the first thing that happens is he binds him. He wraps him up with bronze fetters, the Bible says. And now that he's tied up, the next thing that he does, he blinds them. He pokes out his eyes. Now he has no vision. So he's limited and he has no vision. He has no strength. And that's what and then the Bible says after that, they put him on a grinding mill and he's walking around the grinding mill, working for the enemy every day. He's entertaining the enemy every day. So what I'm trying to get you to see is that when you have a heart of cement, the enemy will find you. He'll bind you. He'll blind you. He'll grind you. And oh yeah, that was a weird one. But he'll have you doing stuff. He'll have you working for him and he'll have you entertaining him. You'll start, how do I know when I'm being used by the enemy? Because I start doing stuff that I would have said no to before. Stuff I once had power over now has power over me. Things that I would have never thought about, I would have never considered. Now I have no option, and it seems like it's my only option because my heart is cement. Watch what the Bible says in 2 Corinthians 4:4. The Bible says, Satan, who is the god of this world, has blinded the minds of those who do not believe. They are unable to see the glorious light of the good news. They don't understand this message about the glory of Christ, who is the exact likeness of God. Oh my God. Some people, they act like they want to hear it, but they don't. And the Bible says their heart is cement. The challenge with the person when your heart is cement is that it's hard to convince you of anything. It's the people that think they know already. It's the people that they think that because of whatever status they have, that they have it together and they're just here to be here and there's no real purpose. And so that is cement. Everybody say cement. Let me show you the second one. The second one is in verse 5. He said this one's called the rocky ground. So we have the cement. Now we have the rocky ground. He says in verse 5, other seed fell on rocky ground where there was not enough dirt. It grew very fast there because the soil was not deep. But when the sun rose, it burned the plants, and the plants died because they did not have deep roots. Bump somebody say, you got to go deeper this year. Verse 20 says, and what about the seed that fell on rocky ground? Jesus is explaining this in private now. He said, that is like the people who hear the teaching and quickly and gladly accept it, but they do not let the teaching go deep into their lives. They keep it only a short time, and as soon as trouble or persecution comes, because of the teaching they accepted, they give up. Oh my God, this is Jesus, not Jason. So watch this. He says the rocky ground is the person that has an initial excitement but never goes further. It's the person who's jumping around on Sunday. Preach, Pastor Jay. High five. I love this church. What kind of church is this? And we leave and forget everything that we got. It's the person who's on fire for now. It's the person who's hot right now. Okay, I'm not talking about y'all, but in the past, other churches I've been to. It's the person that's excited and signs up for all this stuff and never shows up. You got to see it. He says, these are the people who the word never takes root. Charles Spurgeon said something kind of crazy. He said, these people seem to have been baptized in boiling water because they end up requiring constant, superficial excitement to remain in faith. These are people that you have to babysit their faith. Oh my God. So they're excited. They seem converted until they walk away. And the Bible says that this heart is a heart that's full of stone. I'm going to break this down. They have growth on top, but nothing deeper. So they have what looks like the fruit of a plant, but they don't have a root of a plant. So nothing ever goes beyond surface. Nothing goes beyond the moment. Nothing goes beyond the message. Nothing goes beyond the excitement. Nothing goes beyond that point because they have no root. So watch this. People that have rocky hearts get burnt out easy. And the issue is they say things like this. Well, I tried Jesus and it didn't work for me. I used to be a Christian. You know, I was going to church for a little bit, but I've just been chilling right now. I'm doing my thing. It's the reason they're like this is because their heart was shallow soil and they're impulsive by nature. So they responded to a moment, to an encounter, to an experience, but never took it further than that. And I'm nervous because there's a whole lot of people that are on fire on paper, but in real life, the fire burnt out. And the challenge is, it's like this. It's like all of us, I said us, that signed up for a new gym membership in January. And you went for 7 days. But they ain't seen you at the gym in the last 3 weeks. Who am I preaching to? Just wink at me. Keep your hand down. And the issue is we have this desire, but we never get rooted in our decisions. And so Jesus says, when trial and temptations come, when hard things come to test your confession, you'll change your confession because of what you're experiencing. He said that's rocky ground. 2 Timothy, write this down. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 12 says, yes, and everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. That's the part we hate. Can we be honest? Like, how many signed up and said, you know what? I want to suffer. Anybody in here? Anybody? If that's you, come to the altar now. Let me pray for you. Yes, Jesus, I want to suffer. Like, we're going to suffer, but the reality is none of us want to. But Jesus tells us that's part of the game. That's part of rocking with me. He said, watch this. Not only will you suffer, but the world will hate you because it hated me first. So we have to understand that all of this, just bump somebody and say it's part of the game. Go ahead and tell them. So we have the cement ground, the rocky ground, but there's another ground that Jesus talks about. He calls it thorny weeds. I'll call it acceptable. Acceptable. I'm going to make it make sense. Verse 7 says, some other seed fell among thorny weeds. These weeds grew and stopped the good plants from growing. Then he goes and explains it. He says, and what about the seed that fell among the thorny weeds? That is like the people who hear the teaching, but let worries about this life and love for money stop it from growing. So it does not produce a crop in their lives. I think this one, I call it acceptable. Let me tell you why. This heart is the most dangerous because this is the one that looks right. This is the one that's hard to see and recognize from the outside. This is the one that knows how to put on the church face. This is the one that shows up, takes notes, serves, knows all the cliches, even bought motivation gear. It's the one that's a part of church. It's the one that prays for other people. It's the one that does all the right things and from the outside looks good. It's the one that Jesus says will come to me in the last day and say, Lord, Lord, it's me. And he's going to say, depart from me, you worker of iniquity, I never knew you. And that person that's acceptable is going to say, but I prophesied in your name. I did all of the stuff. And he's going to say, you did the stuff. You did all the stuff on the outside, but you never let me do the stuff on the inside. These people I'm concerned about. And if I could be honest and a little bit judgmental, I think that's where the majority of people are. It's the people that look acceptable because they look good enough for you not to bother them. They look good enough for you not to worry. And so they pass all the outward tests with flying colors. And here's the challenge. They're growing too. These are people that are still growing. They're growing in the right places because they're growing with the weeds and the wheat. They're all growing together. So it looks like, they're kind of in the mix. They're kind of in there. And all of a sudden, this is really the evidence that they're acceptable, that their hearts are thorny. It's this. It's that their fruit is killing what God is trying to produce. This is why it's dangerous. Because weeds that kill seed is a slow process. It's not easy and it's not obvious to recognize. Jesus said, these people, watch what Jesus said. He said, that is like people who hear teaching, but let worries about this life and the love of money stop it from growing. So there's nothing that's ever produced. You never see fruit from this life. You never see fruit from this heart, from this type of person. And the challenge is, watch this, the challenge is these people are caring. It's just that they care about the wrong things. They put their priorities in the wrong places. It's the person who says, I'll do it eventually, just not now. I'm not going to deny God, but I'm not going to make pleasing him my priority. This is the person who's deceived in denial. This is the person that the world chokes out their spiritual life. This is the person who is privately lukewarm. And the issue is they don't recognize it. It's one thing when it's recognizable. When you're cement, you can see that there's no fruit. When it's rocky, you can see that it's shallow. But it's dangerous when you look mature. When nobody, including you, can even tell. It's one thing for someone else to deceive you. It's a whole nother thing when you play yourself. Because when you become a person who feels like I don't need help, I'm good, you're in trouble. And this heart is the acceptable heart. They look acceptable. They look good. They look like they meet all of the boxes. And they even preach. Wall. Pastor acceptable. Prophet acceptable. Deacon acceptable. Musician acceptable. Usher acceptable. Sound man acceptable. Deacon is like, that ain't me. Security acceptable. Mom and them acceptable. And it's this is the one I really want to deal with before I move. We're gonna move, I promise. I don't want to stay here. I don't want to park here too long. I'm just gonna put it in neutral for a second. And I want to say this because if you're not careful, you'll be acceptable so long that you become the standard. I was asking somebody, I was frustrated in my pastoral capacity. And I was having a difficult conversation with someone. And I said to them, I hear you, right? Heard them. So, but let me ask you this. I've never heard a time in the history of knowing you that I've ever heard you say I was wrong, meaning them. Everything you said you do, it's always somebody else. Well, nobody. And I'm listening. I'm a good listener. I listen to patterns. And I'm like, for years, you're saying nobody, everybody. And I'm like, at some point, it can't be everybody. At some point, there's a responsibility that you play in the fruit and the results of your life. But here's the problem. Because you've been acceptable, you can't see the problem. And I said, so let me point it to you like this. If everybody at Motivation was like you, tell me what kind of church we'd have. We'd have a church full of excuses. We'd have a church full of reasons. We'd have a church that's lacking. We'd have a church that's sometimesy. Oh yeah, this person was mad too, big mad. But I said, can I give you my lens? Because if everybody was like you and you were the standard, we wouldn't be in this building. Uh-oh. Wall, I knew you was going to have my back. Thank you for being here because they're quiet. So the question, since you got pens and you got phones and you got devices, write this down. What kind of church would this be if everybody was like me? If I was the standard, what would this church be like? You might need to play some music in a second because I'm losing them. They're gone. They left. The glory is gone. They're like, oof, pastor's rude. I am. Did you write it down? Okay, because you're going to answer that question. All right, so Jesus says, though, that this heart is dangerous. And I'm telling you this because I want you to snap out of it. That your level of acceptable is not God's. And I'm going to prove it by what Jesus says. Here's the last one. So he says the first one, y'all remember? Cement. What's the second one? Rocky. Third one, acceptable. So y'all know where we're going. The fourth one, he says, is good ground. I'm going to call that pure. He says this heart is pure. But some of the seed fell on good ground, on a pure heart. There it grew and made grain. Some plants made 100 times more grain, some 60 times more, and some 30 times more. That's what Jesus preached to the crowd. Here's what he said in private. He was explaining it, and he said, but what about the seed that fell on good ground, on pure ground? He said, that is like the people who hear the teaching and understand it. They grow and produce a crop, sometimes 100, sometimes 60, sometimes 30 times more, okay? So this is those that are hungry as a result of them hearing. So those that are really hearing from God, you get hungrier for God. How do I know my heart's pure? Is because I begin to have an appetite for him and I begin to desire him aside from church. That it doesn't take Pastor Jay to make you want God. That it doesn't take an amazing band to make you want to be in his presence. When my heart is pure towards him, it doesn't matter if Bible study's happening or not, there's still going to be Bible study. It doesn't matter if there's a band or not, there's still going to be worship. It doesn't matter where I am. It does not dictate my relationship with God. When my heart is pure, everybody say pure. What's being produced from my life is based on what God planted in my life. So now I start to see the fruit of what I received from the Lord. If I don't see fruit, then that means what God gave me was not good ground, or I did not allow it to stay long enough for it to be planted, because everything that God planted will be produced. And the problem is many of us are asking for God's production without God's seed. So we spend a lot of time allowing everything else to sow into us, but we want God to bless someone else's seed. Oh my God. The thing about it is, God says, I'm going to bless what I produce. I'm going to bless what I called. I'm going to bless and I'm going to invest in what I deposited in you. So the thing is, I have to weekly and daily position my heart so that it stays pure. Does that mean perfect? No, purity does not mean perfection. Purity means I have a posture to say, I know I'm messed up, but I got to get it right. It's moving from being acceptable and acknowledging that being acceptable to you is not enough. I have to be pleasing to God, which means, and I'm not talking about law, I'm not talking about a bunch of works, but I'm talking about putting in some type of effort to respond to what God has put inside of me. His word is drawing me closer to him. Worshiping him is drawing me closer to him. Reading and studying and being around people that are growing too is going to make me want to grow more. So it's about purifying my heart. And the challenge is that many of us don't know how to do it. And I'm going to give you this. Write this down and we're going home. This is big. Jesus says, those that have a good heart, they produce a good harvest. Good heart, good harvest. Good heart, good harvest. Good heart, good harvest. Y'all see the principle? Good heart, good harvest. Some 100 times, some 60, some 30, but it's always going to produce. But here's the thing, because we always talk about the issue, right? So we see the issue, we see it, Jesus lays it out. So the question is, how do I have a pure heart? How do I purify my heart so that my heart is not crap? Here it is. He says in Psalm 119, 9 through 11, I'll read it, you write it. How can a young person stay pure? By obeying your word. I have tried hard to find you. Don't let me wander from your commands. I have hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. Watch this. The heart determines the house. The heart determines that. What kind of person you are is determined by the heart you have. Here's the things I want you to write down. 5 things. Here's how I purify my heart. Number 1, give you 5 quickly. Number 1, pursue God purposefully. Pursue God purposefully. Number 2, pursue God progressively. Pursue God progressively. Number 3, pursue God personally. Pursue God personally. Number 4, pursue God purely. Number 5, pursue God passionately. Let me give you these quick. Purposefully means with intention. My intention is to pursue him. I don't bump into God by accident. I'm going after him. Progressively means day by day, I'm taking steps to grow. That I understand that this is a process. Everybody say process. Say it like you believe it. Say process. It's a process, which means I'm not going to be a superhero tomorrow. Just because you came to church 3 weeks in a row and you made 2 Bible studies does not mean you preaching next week. Calm down, slow down, chill, be easy, breathe. And allow God to grow you. So it's a progressive thing, all right? Thirdly, personally, which means that it has to be aside from public. There's some things that's not for public consumption. There's some prayers I don't pray publicly. There's some confessions with God, it's just me and him. So I have to go after God personally. That means even if I'm not in church, I can still have church. I have to create space for him, all right? Number 4, purely. It means with the right intention, the right motive. I'm not going after God for stuff. Oh, God, I need you to bless me, so I'm going to pray. Because y'all know, come on, y'all got a court case coming up. You know how many prayers go up when we got court? Come on, I know who I'm talking to. I got court. Yo, Pastor Jay, just pray for me. You need me to do anything at the church this week? Like, what? Like God's going to count that time so you don't have to get locked up. But we have to pursue God purely. Like, I just want him. It's we got kids' church. I can say what I want, right? I can't. But I'll say this. I just saw my daughter like, no, Dad. Here's the thing. Y'all don't feel good about a relationship with someone who's only pursuing you to smash and dash. Hit it and quit. Now, some of y'all nasty. You like that. It's true. Y'all grown. We're grown. It's true. Some of y'all just crazy. But here's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, many of us treat God that way. I just need a blessing. I just need a miracle. Thank you, God. And leave church. I know. And if they don't come back, I'll see somebody else in that seat next week. I'm trying to tell y'all something. Because the problem is, many of us are not pursuing God purely. We want God for stuff. And he says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness. And then, everybody shout, and then the other stuff comes. So we have to pursue him purely. And number 5, this is very important, I think downplayed, passionately. There should be passion with your pursuit. Like, imagine, it's almost time, shameless plug, we going on date night, every married and engaged couple, we going to Top Golf. Y'all ready for that? Oh, y'all are weak. Never mind, I'm going to find somebody else to go. It's terrible. We gotta work on this. We need to put like a screen up, like applause screen. Or we got to bring that back or something, because that was awful. Like, we're going out for date night. Oh, how boring, dry marriages. Just crusty marriage. Anyway. Oh, it's the weather. It's not me. I told you I'm moody. I'm sorry. Okay, let me tell you. Here's the thing. I don't give anything to my wife without passion. I get excited about gifts I'm giving her. I'd be like, oh, I can't wait. I want to see her face when she opens it. I want to see how she responds. Now, I'm going to get an attitude if she don't respond right. Oh, can I tell you this? I remember it was like 20 years ago. I listened well. And so I remember it was Valentine's Day. Never forget this. And my wife said, for Valentine's Day, well, we were in the mall. And, you know, I'm just watching, like, now, I'm married long enough so I don't have to go to the mall with my wife anymore. I put my time in. Fellas, put your time in early, then you don't have to do it later, because I'm not going to the mall with her. I'll just, real quick, all of that. That is the tongue of Beelzebub. It's a lie from the pit. Just real quick, if we can just, that's when I know. She's like, when the crackheads start, if you could just let me, that's what she's like, we can just, and then when she get me there, she got me, so I ain't going. But anyway, I remember one Valentine's Day, she said, because I'm working out, I'm trying to get in shape. I don't know what number baby we were on at the time, but she's like, I got to get this weight off, I got to do my thing. And so she's like, we were in the store, and, at the time they had Brookstone. Remember Brookstone used to be in the mall? And they had, I'm a massage junkie. I love massages. Like, I'm going to sleep. You touch me like this, I'm going to go to sleep on the spot, Andrew. And, but she was like, she sat in one of them chairs that had the massage thing in it. And it was the pad that you could get. She was like, I would love one of these. And I'm like, yes, got it. So this is like January, right? Then she's like, she's watching this workout thing on TV. And it was, the rollers? And she's like, I want to get one of those rollers and work on my abs. And I was like, all right, cool, do your thing, okay, cool. So I'm, thinking, okay, Valentine's Day's coming up. We're going to do dinner, and I'm going to get her these gifts. So I remember we were at my mother-in-law's house. My brother-in-law was sitting there. I was excited because he came with me. He was like 5 years old at the time. We're all excited. And go get the gifts. And it's Valentine's Day, so we're going to go to dinner and everything. And my wife opens the gifts, and I'm all excited, like I'm ready for her to say, you're the man. And she goes, this is for you, huh? I was like, what? And she was like, I mean, thanks. I was tight. It was the worst Valentine's Day in the history of Valentine's Day. Because I wanted a response because I was passionate. I was excited. But what I got her, that's not what she wanted for Now, I was young back then. I was in my 20s. And I thought if you said you want something, don't matter when you get it, you said you want it, so I got you what you wanted. But that's not for Valentine's Day. Yeah. Like there's a list. Like you get it for Christmas, but not Valentine's Day. That ain't nothing but the devil. But here's what I'm saying. My point is that even though her attitude was terrible, I gave it to her passionately. And it's like, imagine somebody cooking something for you, and you hungry, and they walk up to you, and they give it to you. Here you go. Now I'm hungry, but I might throw it back at you because how you gave it to me. And if you can't go after God with passion, don't go after him. All I'm trying to tell you is that it's the heart that determines the house. Tell somebody it's in the house. Come on, let's stand. Did this message find anybody today? All right. And so I know I offended like 7 of y'all by saying that our house, our heart is crap. But it's cement, it's rocky, it's acceptable, or it's pure. My desire for us as a church, for a group of people, is that we'll desire to have a pure heart. Who can go into the holy place? He that has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul unto vanity or sworn deceitfully. He shall receive a blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. God responds to our pure heart. And I don't want this to get corny to us because I know you're like, oh, purity in 2024, but purity's still good. It's okay to be pure. And I'm not just talking about virginity because some of y'all, it's past that, right? It's past it. We passed it. Because you can still be a virgin and not be pure. So we're not talking about sex. We're not talking about all that. We're talking about your heart for real. And many of us have to check our heart for real because there should be a response. That's not an emotional, that's not a religious one. There's a spot, like, it's okay to be emotional. You need some emotion. You can't be passionate without emotion. But there's still a part of you that you got to think. You could be emotional, but you also have to be a thinker. And we have to think through it. And many of us know where we are, but we're not responding. Many of us know our heart, but we're fronting for ourselves. It's like when we look in the mirror and we know that thing doesn't fit, but you try to make it fit in the mirror. So you suck it in. You move to a certain angle. You get that one angle that looks good and you leave at that angle. It was like bad, 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 good. Okay, and you just dip because you got the angle you needed to trick your mind that this was a good idea. And many of us live for God that way. So I just want us as individuals to shift, to respond, and to start to really check our heart and say, God, I'm going to be pure towards you. I'm going to be pure in your presence. I'm going to seek you in the things in my life, the things in my heart. I'm going to work on. I'm going to do my best to please you with my decisions. Anybody ready to take a step like that? Anybody ready to take that step? Because nobody's going to work on you. You got to work on you. And as mad as I was for 2 days, I thought about something. No matter how mad I was, I still couldn't blame my wife because I'm in control of me. I'm in control on how I steward my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, my mouth, my attitude, my responses, my lack of. Many of us are pushing that off because we haven't had a heart check. It's time to have a heart check.
See, I try to tell you, this message was crazy. And this sermon series is only getting louder, no pun intended. But listen, if you guys really enjoyed this message today, please like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the post notifications. And before you go, if you want to be a part of this ministry and you want to give and sow a seed, by our options below. We are doing so many amazing things here at Motivation Church. And if you just really enjoy what we're doing here, please come to our Sunday service. We have 11:30 a.m. right now, and so it's been packed in here. Hopefully we can see you in person. But thank you for tuning into this message today. We hope to see you in person. Love you guys. Peace.